The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy gleamed with polished alloys and holographic displays, a place where the brightest minds from dozens of worlds came to learn about warfare, survival, and diplomacy. Today's subject was the biological fragility of humans. Professor Vale, a towering insectoid from the Cheer Dominion, clicked his mandibles as he paced the stage. His four spindly arms danced across the projector controls, conjuring anatomical diagrams of a human skeleton. To the rows of cadets watching, it looked pitiful. Thin bones, minimal armor, flesh exposed to the elements. "Observe," Vale intoned, his voice sharp and chittering. "One blow to the cranium renders them unconscious. A puncture to this fragile organ," his claw hovered over the projection of a heart, "and they perish. Compare this to the Dravak, whose triple hearts allow them to withstand catastrophic injury, or the Grell, whose exoskeleton rivals military armor plating." The audience of aliens chuckled, some openly sneering. Rows of tusks, beaks, and mandibles all twisted into mockery, their laughter echoing in the tiered chamber. At the back of the hall sat the lone human cadet. Marcus Hale leaned back in his seat, arms folded, eyes half-lidded. He let the laughter roll over him without reaction. This wasn't the first time he'd heard it. Humans were always the fragile ones in galactic comparisons, the butt of 1,000 evolutionary jokes. Professor Vale continued, his claws gesturing like daggers. "Even their so-called immune system is riddled with inefficiency. They suffer from disease with shocking frequency. Truly, their survival as a species is improbable." The projection shifted to a simulation, a human struck by a predator's blow. The figure toppled instantly. Another slide showed humans collapsing from atmospheric extremes, burns, and fractures. Each one ended with a red flashing mark, incapacitated. More laughter. Vale paused for effect, his compound eyes narrowing toward Marcus. "And yet," he said, voice dripping with disdain, "somehow the human species has clawed its way to the stars. Tell me," Cadet Hale leaned forward, mandibles clicking, "what is humanity's great defense? Do you rely on pity, on the charity of stronger races?" The hall went quiet. Dozens of alien eyes shifted to Marcus, waiting for him to stammer, to confirm the lesson with his humiliation. But Marcus only smirked. He sat forward, elbows resting on the desk, his gaze calm and steady. "You've got impressive charts, Professor. Real pretty pictures." He tapped the side of his chest with one knuckle. "But maybe you've forgotten something about us." "Oh?" Vale arched his segmented frame, amused. "Enlighten us, fragile one." Marcus's grin widened. "Weakness on paper doesn't mean weakness in reality. You want to prove your point? Don't just show slides. Try me." The hall buzzed with surprise. Students whispered. Antennae twitched. Frills flared. The human had just challenged the professor in front of the entire class. Vale froze for a moment, then let out a hissing laugh. "Very well. If you wish for a demonstration, Cadet Hale, you shall have one." And just like that, the lesson turned into something entirely else. The lecture hall hummed with anticipation as Professor Vale extended a claw toward the front rows. "Cadet Vorkan," he said, selecting one of his most physically imposing students, "you will serve as our volunteer." A ripple of approval spread through the alien cadets. Vorkan, a hulking predator from the warlike Korth species, rose from his seat with a grin full of serrated teeth.
He was twice Marcus's height, his frame corded with muscle beneath thick, scaled hide. When he moved, the floor panels rattled. Marcus rose too, rolling his shoulders, his calm expression standing in stark contrast to the predator's hungry smirk. "Do not kill him," Vale said, sharply, though his tone carried more amusement than concern. "We simply wish to illustrate the fragility of human anatomy." Vorkon flexed his claws, his deep voice rumbling. "One strike, that is all it will take." The audience leaned forward, antennae twitching, eyes gleaming, wings flickering. They expected blood, or at the very least, a whimper of pain. Humans had a reputation for breaking easily. Marcus stepped into the open space at the center of the hall. His boots echoed as he crossed the floor, standing loose and relaxed in front of the towering alien. He looked up at Vorkon as though sizing up a sparring partner at a gym, not a predator bred for war. "Ready, human?" Vorkon asked, his grin widening. Marcus smirked. "Born ready." The blow came fast. Vorkon's scaled fist slammed into Marcus's side with the force of a battering ram. A sickening crack echoed through the chamber, the kind that made alien jaws drop and mandibles clatter. The human's body staggered from the impact, boots scraping against the alloy floor. Gasps rippled through the audience. Some looked away, expecting Marcus to collapse. But he didn't. Marcus straightened, rolling his shoulder, his calm expression standing in stark contrast to the predator's hungry smirk. "That was supposed to hurt?" he said, voice dripping with amusement. The hall went silent. Vorkon blinked, his grin faltering. "What?" Marcus gave a small shrug. "Maybe I missed it. Want to try again?" Whispers exploded among the cadets. The Grell with their armored hides whispered in disbelief. The amphibious sound hissed in confusion. To them, the strike should have shattered bones and left Marcus writhing on the floor. Professor Vale narrowed his eyes. "This is not possible." But Marcus just stood there, calm and smiling, though every nerve in his body screamed. He knew his side was bruised, maybe cracked. But pain was familiar. Pain wasn't defeat. Vorkon growled, lowering his stance. "One more. Harder." Marcus raised a hand casually as though granting permission. "Be my guest." The predator lunged again, fist cocked back with even greater force.
The second strike landed like a thunderclap. Vorkon's scaled fist drove into Marcus's ribcage with bone-crushing force, a blow that would have snapped a Grell's exoskeleton or ruptured the triple hearts of a chur. Marcus staggered back 2 steps, his vision flashing white at the edges. Pain flared hot across his side, sharp enough to steal his breath. But he forced his lungs to draw in air, forced his knees to stay locked beneath him. He straightened, slowly, deliberately. And then he laughed. The sound echoed through the hall, raw and startling. "Better," Marcus said, voice tight but defiant. "Still not feeling it, though." The lecture hall erupted into chaos. Dozens of alien cadets hissed, chirped, and shouted at once. Some muttered that it was a trick, others that humans must have secret implants. Professor Vale's mandibles clattered furiously. "Impossible!" he spat. "You cannot withstand such trauma." Marcus wiped a line of blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. "You've been looking at us wrong," he said evenly, turning toward the professor. "You think strength is about armor, or claws, or spare organs. You don't understand what humans actually are." The room fell into a hush, every eye fixed on him. He took a slow step forward, then another,
pacing across the center of the hall like a man giving his own lecture. His breathing was ragged, his sides screaming with every motion, but he carried himself with the steady confidence of someone who had lived with pain before. On paper, sure, we look fragile. Thin skin, weak bones, vulnerable organs. But what your charts don't show you is what happens after we get hit. We don't fall over and stay down. We keep going. That's our strength. Several cadets exchanged uncertain glances. Marcus's voice hardened. Humans are persistence hunters. We chased prey for days until it dropped dead from exhaustion, while we just kept running. We survived frostbite, heat stroke, starvation, things that should have killed us. We've endured plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out other species. And every time we get knocked down, we get back up. Vorkon growled in protest. You bleed, you break. Yeah, we bleed, we break, and then we heal. Pain doesn't end us, it teaches us. Hurts like hell sometimes, sure, but it doesn't stop us. The hall was silent now, save for Marcus's steady, ragged breathing. Even Professor Vale looked unsettled, his claws flexing nervously. Cadet Hale, you have made your point. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He raised his chin, eyes gleaming. Not quite, Professor. I think I need a few more volunteers to really drive it home. The room rippled with unease.
The lecture hall was electric with tension. Marcus stood in the center, bruised but unbroken, his defiance hanging in the air like a challenge. His words had unsettled them, but his grin, that infuriating, unyielding grin, made even the most hardened species hesitate. Professor Vale snapped his claws in irritation. Enough theater. Cadets, sit. The demonstration is concluded. But the damage was done. A Grell cadet raised a claw hesitantly. Permission to test him, Professor? If humans truly endure, I wish to see it for myself. Before Vale could respond, another cadet, a Seln with sleek amphibian skin, added, I too. Then a drawback warrior, thumping one of his 3 chests, bellowed, I will strike him! The hall buzzed with voices, excitement drowning out the professor's protests. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. Guess the line's forming fast. One by one, the aliens stepped forward, each delivering what should have been crippling blows. A Grell hammer strike to the shoulder, a Selm whip-like tail across the back, a Dravok punch that rattled Marcus's ribs like glass. Each time, Marcus bent, staggered, gasped, but he never fell, he never yielded. And every time he straightened up, raised his chin, and smiled. That all you've got? Good swing, but you should work on your follow-through. Thanks for the massage. By the time the 4th cadet struck, the room wasn't laughing anymore. They were staring, quiet, uneasy. Even Vorkon, the predator who had started it all, watched in silence, his earlier smugness replaced by something else, respect. At last, Marcus raised his hand, waving off the next volunteer. His chest rose and fell heavily, his breaths ragged, but his eyes still gleamed with that stubborn fire. Lessons over, he said, voice hoarse but steady. You wanted to know humanity's weakness? Turns out you were looking in the wrong place. Pain doesn't stop us. Fear doesn't stop us. Nothing does. Except death. And sometimes, he flashed a crooked grin, not even that. The words hung in the air, heavy as gravity. Professor Vale's mandibles twitched, but he could find no rebuttal. He turned stiffly to the class. The lesson is amended. Humanity's fragility is not weakness, it is, adaptation. The cadets whispered to one another, but the whispers carried a different tone now. Not mockery, not laughter, something closer to awe and a sliver of fear. That day, the weakest species earned a new reputation in the academy, not as the strongest, not as the most armored, but the ones you could never truly put down, the ones who would keep getting up long after others had fallen. As the cadets filed out, Vorkarn lingered. He met Marcus's eyes and gave a solemn nod. Predator to predator. You are dangerous. Marcus just grinned through bloodied lips. Now you're getting it. Later, whispers of the demonstration spread through the academy, then across fleets and worlds. And though many would dismiss it as rumor or exaggeration, those who had been in that lecture hall never forgot the sight of a fragile human laughing in the face of pain. One question lingered in their minds, spoken quietly by a young cadet as she watched Marcus leave. If pain doesn't stop humans, what does? No one had an answer.